Hello, good evening, and welcome into a Monday edition of KC Sports Tonight. I am Mark Poulose, joined by Katie Maher on this fine Monday. Katie, we have a lot to talk about here. A lot going on this weekend. You were up at the KU game against BYU this weekend. Let's start there. Seemed pretty exciting. How was that game out there on Saturday?
It was, I'm trying to think of a time where Allen Fieldhouse was louder, which every time I'm there for a game, it's super, super loud. And they're all so close in that aspect, but maybe the loudest I've ever heard it. And I was at the very tippy top. There were fans breathing down my neck. Everyone was going crazy, as it should be for a top 15 matchup. Like, that's what you want to see in college basketball. And there are just few places like that at any level of professional sports, college sports, high school, all the way. Hard to find a place like in Allen Fieldhouse, but obviously it was crazy. The game itself gave fans a lot to cheer for and then kind of kept things interesting towards the very end. I went down to the press room with about under 6 minutes, I want to say, was left. And when I left KU from up there, they were up like 18. And then I came down, and by the time that I got down, it was a 4-point game. So maybe I shouldn't have left when I did, but they still won.
Hey, yeah, they still won in a very exciting game. But KU with another big game tonight on the road at Texas Tech on ESPN's Big Monday. KU in the latest edition of the rankings up to number 11, while Texas Tech is now number 13. However, the Red Raiders are 4.5-point favorites on their home floor. But, Katie, I know a big storyline going into this one is obviously the health of Darryn Peterson. The first half on Saturday, he was absolutely phenomenal against BYU, and I don't necessarily want to get hyperbolic here, but like that first half there against BYU, he looked like the best KU freshman we have seen in many, many years. I mean, we're talking like Andrew Wiggins, Joel Embiid. I mean, you go back even further. Darryn Peterson looks like the best freshman KU might have ever had in maybe the last 25, 30 years. But the issues keep coming up where he cannot finish games. What was going on there on Saturday? What was Bill Self? What was his, we all heard what he said in the presser, but the emotion in the room when he said, I don't know what's going on, I'm not a doctor. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, and I mean, to that point, I see a lot of chatter from angry KU fans who, I think this was before Darryn started to play a little bit more in recent weeks, but when he was missing a ton of games, a lot of KU fans were getting angry, talking on Twitter and everything, and there were a lot of questions to the media as to why aren't you guys pressing Bill Self about this? He's being asked about it. We're getting the same answers every time. It kind of gets to a point where there's nothing like after this game where Darryn Peterson didn't play for most of the second half. Bill Self really didn't say that much about it other than he's not a doctor, which you just said. And it's a shame that we didn't get to see it for 40 minutes, but we did get to see kind of not peak Darryn Peterson, but like what they see in practice and what they know he's capable of. I think Darryn Peterson very much came into the game under kind of with a bit of a chip on his shoulder because of the AJ DeBonsta debate. I was watching College Game Day before the game a few hours before, and the graphic came up. Darryn Peterson, I think, of the 20 NBA scouts or something were asked who they think the number one overall pick should be between him and AJ, and 12 said Darryn Peterson, 8 said AJ DeBonsta. I think there's a lot more than 12 now in that equation. I think he proved himself as the number one pick going in this NBA draft. However, that was only in one half's work. AJ DeBonsta obviously had a much better game in the second half than he did in the first half. But when the two of them were going one-on-one, I mean, Darryn was smoking him. He kind of just, I don't think there's really any debate there. And the reason why I believe so strongly that Darryn Peterson had that chip on his shoulder was because Nike posted a graphic after that game with his poster dunk, and it said end of debate, and Darryn retweeted it. So I think it was a storyline he knew about, and he wasn't kind of shy in proving it. However, he starts the second half, we think everything's fine, and then out of nowhere, he's not playing. And at first I'm like, oh, maybe it's just, it's an under 16 timeout, like media timeout. They're just being smart about resting him before it starts, give him some extra time. Then he doesn't come back in. So.
Yeah, for me, I know there's a lot of people that kind of feel like maybe this weekend and this game settled the debate for the number one overall pick. But for me, I think it settled the debate for who is the most skilled, who is the most talented player. But when you think about taking someone at that #1 overall position, as a GM, whoever you pick is likely going to get you re-signed or going to get you fired. And I think a lot of NBA general managers are going to be like, yeah, we see the tantalizing talent of Darryn Peterson. We see his unbelievable skill. We see how he can put the ball in the basket so easily. But what we also see is a guy who is not able to get out there on the basketball court. And I know there are some people that maybe speculate that this is load management. We've all seen the pictures on social media of Darren's agent there at the game, and people are saying, hey, the agent said take him out. The reason I would kind of pump the brakes on is this load management, is he not playing because he wants to protect his draft status, I guess for 2 reasons I would say this. Number one, a couple weeks ago, Bill Self said this is something Darryn Peterson is going to have to deal with for the rest of his life, this cramping issue. We've seen Darryn on the sidelines. He's drinking pickle juice at these games. Like, it looks like they are actually dealing with an issue of cramps. And it's just like, also, so that's point number one. Bill Self said this is something he's going to have to deal with for the rest of his life, for the rest of his career. Point one. Point number two is look at how his teammates react to Darryn. Like, they love Darryn. Like, he is beloved by his team. Like, when we see some of these Instagram lives that come out after these games and them celebrating in the locker room, like, Darryn is fully celebrating with these guys. They are fully embracing Darryn Peterson. If this were, in my opinion, if this were a guy sitting out to protect his draft status, the team would not embrace him the way that he has been embraced. So I think there is a very legitimate health issue here with Darryn Peterson. And I think actually we might need to tip our cap to Darryn Peterson's agent for doing such a good job at protecting his status as the #1 pick when there is such a clear and potentially obvious, in my opinion, health issue with Darryn Peterson, because we have seen he does look different when he is like the explosion that we saw in the first half on Saturday when he went up and posterized that guy. That is a Darryn Peterson that we have seen maybe 1 or 2 times this year. I think he had a big dunk also against Iowa State there in that first half. But it kind of makes you even think, like, boy, how much better could this guy be if he potentially is 100% fully healthy? Katie, what are your kind of take on the, like we saw his agent at the game. We saw there are pictures online of an associate AD or someone talking to Darryn during the game. In the arena, what was the feeling?
I don't think I don't think I can speak to there being any type of different feeling in the arena because, like I said, I was there up until like under 6 minutes left, and at that point, KU was still up like 15 or 18 points. Yes. So I wasn't actually in the arena when BYU made that like final 5 minutes of a comeback. So I can't speak to as much that. But obviously there was still so much excitement for every bucket that, the Melvin Council Jr. Kind of game sealing.
Heartbeat of the team, Melvin Council.
Literally. He's so fun to watch. I have a yappy dog, and I have never heard more barking than I have in the 2 hours that I was inside Allen Fieldhouse for that game. So much barking.
Yeah, I was up there at one game, and they were doing that, and they had the "Beware of Dog" like yard sign out there. It's very cool to see how the fan base has embraced him. But KU, big game tonight. Number 11 KU at number 13 Texas Tech. Hopefully we'll see Darryn Peterson put on a show. But Katie, is there anything else we need to say on that point?
No, the only thing I'll add is just the fact that kind of going back to, end of debate, obviously Darryn Peterson is much more talented and skilled than AJ Dubonsta. No doubt about that at this point. It's a very wide margin, in my opinion, after watching what I watched on Saturday.
Yep.
And when it comes to that, and the original point I was going for, I've kind of gone off the rails and I've lost my train of thought here. The original point being there, it's called attention, I think, to the whole one and done versus going straight to the pros debate. Darryn Peterson was at NBA level before he started playing in college. And that's, I think this might be kind of opening a bigger door into that discussion, because I have seen, and this was my original point, many NBA scouts who were in attendance, which over half the NBA had representation there for this game.
I think it was 17 teams, yeah.
Many of them have said they're concerned about Darryn Peterson's health at this point. So That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully he can get that figured out, because when he can play, when he is out there on the basketball court, it is just phenomenal to watch. So big game for KU tonight, and they've been playing well recently, so we'll see if they can keep that going today against a good team. But we're going to talk about a team that is not playing well, and that is the K-State men's basketball team. They were absolutely blown out of the water on their home floor yesterday. To make kind of matters worse, in my opinion, obviously K-State enters that game. They're 1-7, but apparently it was Legends Week in Manhattan. So they were doing it all, doing it up, doing it right out there for Legends Week in Manhattan. And none other than the great Bill Snyder was at yesterday's game, as was Lon Kruger, a 2-time Big 8 Player of the Year for K-State. And then the Wildcats barely scored more than 20 points in the first half and were run off the floor by the Iowa State Cyclones in their home gym. And then afterwards...
Two rivalry games now that they've been run out of the
Yeah,
gym.
tremendous point there. And then after the game, Jerome Tang got in front of the media. He was asked if he was disappointed in the 30-point loss. He said no. And then he kind of got in a back and forth with several reporters. And Katie, to me, that is the press conference that you see on a guy that has lost the program. But I don't know if K-State is in a situation to move on from him, because as we've seen, the buyout numbers, at least from what we've seen online and according to reports, it looks like they're about $18, $19 million for right now. And then later they go down to $15 or $16 million, which is quite a big
It's a lot of money.
pill to swallow for the K-State boosters. But Katie, is Jerome Tang's time running out, or are the buyout numbers so high he's staying?
Honestly, I think he stays another year unless the donors are working in the backs of the alleyways, and they're getting together and they're putting that $18 million together right now. It's such a large buyout, and it's looking back. I know hindsight's 2020, and he had this amazing first year, and we literally have a soundbite that our very own Neil Jones got in New York City when they were there for the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, where President Richard Linton said they were going to build a statue, yes, of Jerome Tang. But I have a big issue with Jerome Tang had one answer. And this is kind of where, when a coach starts to say, well, the media is going to do this no matter what I say, blah, 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 and they start going back and forth with the people who cover them all day long, all week long, all season long, all year long. These are, and I'm going to add this, a lot of these reporters that cover K-State, went to K-State. They want the success of the university, and they're asking questions that fans want to know the answer to. Jerome Tang said, you guys are going to clip it and post it and however you want to get your clicks. Every single soundbite from a Jerome Tang post-game press conference that I have seen posted by media members on Twitter and other social media platforms has been uploaded in full. They're not being edited. They're not being clipped any type of way to make him look type of way. These are the answers he is giving. If the only person making him look bad here is him. So there's no editing going on. Maybe if we need to cut down on time or something for a newscast, maybe we take a few if and buts out, but there's no editing being done to what Jerome Tang is saying. Media members are just posting his answers, and then he's like, oh, that doesn't look good. Well, now I'm going to start a fight with the media about it.
Yeah, it's honestly, his reaction there, it was so immature to say that. I mean, just as you said, so many of these people that cover K-State, they're around the program. They cover the program because they were fans of the program. It's something they've loved their entire life, and they truly want what's best. I mean, the media is not the reason that K-State is 1-8 in Big 12 play. The reason is all in Manhattan, Kansas. It's the people within the program. It's Jerome Tang. It's his players, and it's just at a certain point. I mean, this is purely my opinion, but Katie, you've heard me say this before. It's every time he's had a press conference this year, to me, it's felt like he just put his foot in his mouth and said something that he regrets. And I'm like, there's no way that he's going to do it again. And then he does the exact same thing the next week. And then they're like, oh my gosh, he said another stupid thing. There's no way he's going to do it again. And then what does he do? He gets blown out on his home court with the most famous person from their institution ever at the gym, and then he says, yeah, I'm not disappointed that we got blown out by 30.
Crazy.
It's just
crazy to not say you're just, and then he says, because I'm with these guys every day and I see the hard work and blah 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 blah. You can admit that you're disappointed that you lost by 30-plus points on your home court to one of your biggest rivals. You can admit that.
But the flip side is if they don't pay the buyout, which is obviously so expensive, is they have to pay him to come back next year. And I think what's going to happen here is K-State, they're going to have to rally some boosters, and the discussion's probably going to be is like, will we allow Jerome Tang to continue to embarrass our university for the duration of his contract? Because at this point, this is again purely my opinion. This is not the opinion of KCTV5, but some of the things that he is doing, it is just not how the head coach of a Division I program should act. And it's like this guy is paid millions of dollars. He has to be a representative of the Kansas State University and the state of Kansas as a whole, and it's not looking pretty. So
he told us 2 years ago that he just, and I get that he was joking, but he literally said it in a clip that was then posted online by K-State about getting hired to getting rehired to get fired, and then being paid millions of dollars every year from a buyout while you go and live in a country that's not here, doing like charity work and stuff. He told us 2 years ago what the plan was. We just thought it was a joke.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at his record. First year, 26-10. They go to the Elite Eight. Great year. We commend you for that. Next year, 19-15. They go to the NIT first round. Last year, 16-17. No postseason after the Big 12 tournament. Then this year, they're below 500, 10-12, 1-8 in conference. If we were making a bar graph, we would see the steepest decline possible. So K-State, a lot of questions there. We'll see if they can get them answered. We'll see how that all works out. All right, we're going to move to football as it looks like Matt Nagy may be the odd man out in this year's NFL head coaching carousel. This year there were 10 openings, and this last weekend it got down to basically where there were two more teams that had not picked their guys. Those were the Arizona Cardinals and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Cardinals have picked the LaFleur from the LA Rams, and it looks like, according to reports, that the Las Vegas Raiders are going to hire Clint Kubiak out of Seattle. So that means Matt Nagy will not get a head coaching job this cycle unless something unforeseen happens. Katie, to me, Matt Nagy this entire year has seemed like a guy that was moving like a guy that wanted to become a head coach again. That's no longer in the cards. What do you kind of make of the NFL? I mean, pretty quickly, he was a winning record. He's been to the playoffs. No team wants to sign him as a head coach. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and we know that it was in his plan before the year even started that he wanted to be a head coach after this year, after his contract was up, because Andy Reid told us that when he had his press conference last Monday about bringing Bieniemy back. And something else that Andy Reid said in that press conference, which obviously that press conference, like we talked about on here afterwards, I felt like it was very half, I'm so excited that Eric Bieniemy is back, and half, I really want Matt Nagy to get a head coaching job in the NFL.
Yep.
Which, hey, I mean, you got friends, you got people that you care about. Yeah, do your thing. Like, try and support them and try and like help them get the next best thing. Something to remember here is that Andy Reid said in that press conference, even if it's not a head coaching job, like at least somewhere where he can run his own show, I believe was the exact words that he used, which is a loose translation for call plays. And that's not something Matt Nagy was doing in Kansas City. And it's not something he was going to get to do, because even now with Bieniemy back, Andy Reid is still calling plays. When Eric Bieniemy left in 2022, it was so that he could call his plays, or maybe be a head coach, because Andy Reid obviously also thought that obviously also felt that Bieniemy should be that too. But yeah, Bieniemy left so he could go call plays. Maybe that's the next best fit for Matt Nagy. Maybe that's the next step to becoming a head coach. Because I mean, I don't think it's as impressive of a resume to be a head coach coming from an offensive coordinator position. And yes, he's been a head coach before, obviously, but has taken step backs for obvious reasons. I think the next step maybe is to go prove that you can do it again, call the plays, be the man. And then maybe he goes from there. But the next best thing in the NFL right now is what everyone wants. They want the young guy that's kind of emerging, and that's not even just the NFL. That's like head coaching carousel in Division I basketball. How many programs have fans that are like, let's not look at the recycled coach and let's look at the young 40-year-old guy in the mid-major that's like a proven winner at that level and can work his way into the high major, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's just kind of what this coaching cycle has proven almost. I mean, there haven't been that many recycled head coaches, I would say, other than Robert Saleh, obviously.
Your boy Mike McCarthy out in Pittsburgh.
Don't even get me started on that. Pittsburgh is done for that. But, yeah.
No, I'm interested to see where Matt Nagy's landing spot will be because obviously he's going to try to find an offensive coordinator position. But I was just thinking now of some of the places that he was tied to earlier. I think there was a report that he was interviewed with the Baltimore Ravens, and the Baltimore Ravens just hired a guy that's an offensive coordinator he's 29 years old. He's younger than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's kind of maybe the way that the NFL is going is with a lot of these younger guys, and Matt Nagy might be the odd guy out in this scenario. But to me, I think Matt Nagy knows how to coach football. I just think the problem here is anyone that has watched the Chiefs over the last 2 years, bless you. Anyone that's watched the Chiefs over the last 2 years, you have seen an offense struggle. And if you're trying to maybe sell that to a fan base, be like, hey guys, like we just hired this guy to be our new head coach, and be like, well, we've seen the Chiefs for the last 2 years, and boy, on offense, it really wasn't pretty. Like people could legitimately, very legitimately say if the Chiefs did not have Patrick Mahomes, they could have the worst offense in all of football. And so I think maybe that might be a situation that Matt Nagy needs to go to a different place and obviously kind of rehabilitate his image, because here in Kansas City, the offense has looked so stagnant. And then something, I was actually talking about this with Marlia Campbell, our sports director. She made a tremendous point. So there were 10 openings this offseason. And Matt Nagy, we don't know how many of those that he interviewed for, but I would assume obviously is at least more than 3. Or there's a handful of those that are interviewed. But none of those 10 teams that had openings wanted to hire Matt Nagy. So next cycle comes around, like the next teams could be like, well, there were a bunch of openings last year and no one wanted you, so why will we want you? Like no one wanted you last year. What made you better this year? So hopefully we help Matt Nagy. I think he's a good football coach. When we're out there, he gives very detailed answers. I think the players seem to at least respond pretty well to him. I think the Chiefs had a little bit of a tough hand this year with injuries on the O-line. We were talking about this at the end of the year. Their 2 starting tackles at the end of the year did not play high school football. So how can we really accurately judge what the offense was doing? So we'll have to see what happens there. Matt Nagy looks like he won't be a head coach. Katie, anything else? Or
nope.
Well, here's something I have to ask you a lot of questions about, because UMKC made a big-time hire over the weekend. The Kansas City Roos announced that Topeka native and former Kansas point guard Mark Turgeon will come to Kansas City to be the head coach of the Roos. Katie, you covered Mark Turgeon when he was the head coach at Maryland, where you went to college. You were telling me a little bit about Turge yesterday, as you call him, Turge. I guess what we're going to call him now. You said he is a man of principles. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so I covered Mark Turgeon for almost 4 years, and I say almost because my senior year was his final year at Maryland, and he left the program 8 games into the season. I'm not going to say too much that I can't prove factually because I am a journalist, of course.
Capital J journalist.
Capital J journalist.
Of the highest order.
And there's a lot of, hearsay and just things that you pick up when you're on the scene.
Chatter.
Chatter. But the overall gist, and I'm going to go on the record here and just say, like, I was very much Team Turge in this. I think he's a very good person, and he's a man of principles, and he's not a yes man. He's not a guy that's just going to, suck up to an athletic director and hands and knees, like, I'll do whatever you say, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's not afraid to kind of, and at the time, and at the time, that's just not how the current athletic director at Maryland wanted to roll, and I think it was a lot of headbutting. I think it no longer was a joy for him to coach anymore. Am I a little sad that he didn't coach the rest of the season, because that whole season was kind of a dumpster fire after that? A little bit, but I'm not going to blame him, because like I said, it was kind of a bad situation to begin with. And then, the chatter behind the scenes after that was that he wasn't going to get back into coaching until after his son, who was playing in college nearby in D.C., graduated from school. So the time off from coaching wasn't a shock at all. Shock to me that he's coming back to Kansas for it, Kansas City. But I joke and I say, like, wherever I go, like, I have to cover Mark Turgeon.
Yeah.
To cover him for 4 years, and then I'm in Topeka for 3 years before I come here, and everyone's, he's a Topeka native, blah, blah, blah. And now he's back here, and I talked to him when he was inducted into the Kansas Sports Hall of Fame last year. And something that stuck out to me about my conversation with him was I told him, like, hey, you probably don't remember me. It's been a few years, but, like, I was a student reporter when in your final years at Maryland. And the first thing he said to me, he gets the biggest smile on his face. And he says, were you there for the 2020 Big Ten championship season? And I'm like, there are a lot of coaches in college and at any level that, like, maybe shy away from talking about accomplishments or whatever else. He was so darn proud of that.
Yeah.
Like, that, I found that to be kind of endearing and wholesome, and, like, that's a coach you want to play for, I think.
And
that's a special time for him, of course. So yeah, Turge has my respect. I'm excited to get to talk to him again, and it's a home run hire because he is a proven winner. He didn't get to the extent that Maryland fans wanted him to get, which was why there was so much stuff going on behind the scenes that made people unhappy and yada yada yada, and there was butting heads. But yeah, like I said, this is a home run hire for UMKC. It's been a struggling program as of late, and to get a coach who knows what he's doing, that's awesome for them.
I could not agree more. He's taken 10 different teams to the NCAA, or not 10 different. Well, 10. He's been to the NCAA tournament 10 times. I mean,
we were going to go to the Final Four in 2020, but then COVID happened.
Yeah. Well, if you were going to tell me that UMKC was going to hire a coach that had been to the NCAA tournament 10 times, like, I would have been like, well, that's an absolutely home run hire. So, Katie, I was having this discussion with a couple people in the newsroom here, but we have one more topic, so we got to be pretty quick here. Jerome Tang or Mark Turgeon, who would you rather have as your head coach right now?
Mark Turgeon.
Absolutely Mark Turgeon. That's what I think too. So I think UMKC right now, well, next year, as things stand, I would take Mark Turgeon over Jerome Tang. We'll see how that goes. All right, we have one more topic to talk about today. The KU women's basketball team is loaded with local talent. They have a pair of local 5-stars who are McDonald's All-Americans, Jalea Davis, Samaya Nichols. Then, Katie, you're telling me their best defender, Sanaya Copeland, is she's from Olathe North, I believe we found out yesterday. But they're 3-8 in Big 12 play. You were at the game yesterday. What's going on there?
I think Colorado, that's who they were playing yesterday, brings a different kind of attack that even they admitted post-game they were not ready for. Colorado really brought it on defense, and that's a credit to them. What I was watching was a lot of disruptive basketball. Like, they did not want to let Samaya and Jalea get the ball at all. The score at the end of the first quarter was 7-4.
Yeah, not good. I think I saw KU had 28 turnovers yesterday.
And the turnovers were a huge issue. Colorado was just playing disruptive basketball. Like, that's really the best way to put it. I think that's it. I think yesterday's loss is more of a credit to just the way that Colorado's game plan was.
Tip your cap.
But then KU kind of fixed their problems in the second half. They played much better basketball, in my opinion, and they, bring it back, and it goes to overtime. But Jalea Davis does foul out before overtime, so they didn't have her for all of that, where they eventually lose it by 3. It's such a weird case where this team is full of so much talent. They have a great starting 5, and then Elle Evans has been coming off the bench lately, and she's this spark plug from beyond the arc. And they have some depth. It's just a weird. You almost don't. It's like you don't know. Like, so just there's a disconnect happening where they're just not winning close games. They almost upset number 12 TCU last week. They lost by 2 points on their home court. So
yeah. No, it's quite a mystery, but what we do know is with Samaya and Jalea, they certainly have 2 of the best players in the conference. One note quickly here before we close. Today they announced the McDonald's All-American rosters, and Park Hill South's Addison Bajorn was named a McDonald's All-American. She's a 5-star. She's signed with the University of Texas. We have seen her play. She's absolutely unbelievable. Katie, I know you did a story with her this summer. You got to talk to her a little bit. How cool is it that Addison is a McDonald's All-American?
She's one of the most just pleasing players to watch. Like, the way she plays basketball is so fun to watch. You and I were saying she's just smooth with it, and also she's a really good girl. I mean, I talked to her obviously when I did a story on her, and her parents were super nice. She was super nice, super mature. So good girl to have success.
Hey, Addison Bajorn, shout out to you. You are a McDonald's All-American. We'll be cheering you on every step of the way. But that's a look at KC Sports Tonight here on this Monday. Until next time, take care. See you later.